The first panel that we are starting the second day with, it will be covered with the theme, Will Web 3.0 live up to the hype? Valuations, consolidation, hype, and culture. And the panel 6 will be discussing about what are the emerging technologies that are shaping fintech. So our speakers for the first panel are Ms. Randa Al-Rifai, CBO Gloryting. She's our moderator as well. Ms. Rifai, would you like to join us on the stage, please? Mr. Mohammed Khatib, President, Global Head of Islamic Banking, Azatius Software. Dr. Melisa Utku, Board Member, Alparma Turk. And Mr. Emre Alçı, Head of Digital Banking, Türkiye İş Bankası. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the FinTech Growth Vision. I'm really happy to be actually moderating and speaking with esteemed speakers today about Web3, FinTech, and emerging technologies. Hopefully you will enjoy the talk. So starting with today, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And still we are witnessing massive digital transformation within huge organizations, SMEs, and even communities. So by default, we know that a person's most prized possession is freedom. And when someone tries to take it away, we revolute. For instance, the evolvement of money, which is actually becoming the internet of money, and the decentralization of ownership, hence Web3. So today, we will talk about Web3, fintech applications of Web3, emerging technologies and successful applications into the Web3, and we will define together if it is a hype or not. Please welcome our speakers, Mr. Mohammed Khatib from Azentio Software, Mr. Malik Shah Utku from Al Baraka Turk, and Mr. Emre Alçı from İşbank. Mr. Mohammed, so we are labeling this era as Web3. May you define it, please, in your own way and based on your own experience, actually.
Web3.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And first of all, it's great to be here again with you in person. Web3 is, of course, when you hear anything like with a number, you want to know Web3, okay, Web2, Web1, and we all know that the internet started back in 1969, and we went through multiple iterations from it. Web2 is the latest, was started around 2005 with the social media and the interaction and allowing the people to contribute to the internet. Web3 is a completely different vision of what the internet will be and what the web will be. And the interesting thing here is you ask different people and you get different answers for Web3. Some people describe a utopia for Web3 where basically it's a completely decentralized world, that it's one-to-one and we don't have those mediators and it's completely democratized. Versus others describe it as an incremental change for the Web2 where basically we get better technology and we get more companies talking also together. But it is emerging from Web2 and it's not like removing completely, and it complements Web2. So Web3 definition is completely actually different depending on who is the entity. I believe it's somewhere in the middle. I believe Web3 provides amazing technologies such as blockchain and the tokenization, the decentralization, and a lot of great application will actually emerge that move us to a better world and more secure and more intelligent application moving forward.
Yes, true. So we will go ahead with the examples, if I can say, for the emerging technologies and Web3 in our session. Now, I would like to ask Mr. Malik Shah. Of course, please introduce yourself first, because I forgot to ask you that. And I would like you to tell us about defining the innovative technologies that are really reshaping the financial services business as you like as a banker.
Thank you very much. Well, with regards to blockchain and Web3, I think it is a hype, and it should be a hype. And you know, because all technologies start as hypes, and it is during this phase that interest grows, and people think about what they can do, seeing the examples. Many of the leaders will probably stumble after this phase. You know, we might not see the same technologies, but I think it is here to stay. At least the major components are going to stay. And we're seeing that being tried out in realistic terms in the financial sector, definitely. As you know, financial sector itself depends on many stakeholders. These are not just customers and shareholders, but also the legal environment and international setting among the financial institutions themselves. So it is not enough for a two-party bilateral agreement to do something. It is necessary to make this accepted by the whole financial community and also by the legal regulatory environments in different countries. Yeah. That is, I think, the main challenge. I don't think the main challenge with regards to Web3 being adopted in the financial sector is technology, because the financial companies, and interestingly enough, fintechs have the muscle power now and the know-how to, I think, use these technologies in a wide range of financial services. And we're seeing products and services being adopted slowly, but the main hindrance or challenge is going to be that wide adoption, and that is the threshold that I think that we have to bypass. We have tried it in our case, for example, in a couple of examples. One is Biga. I think İşbank was also part of that. It's a transfer of gold. It's a tokenized gold. It's backed by gold, actually, a gram of gold, and it allows, for the first time, transfer, like electronic fund transfer of gold among the banks. And this was initiated by the Turkish counterparty bank and technology institution of Turkey, and the banks were able to do it together, and it kind of was established. It kind of worked because several banks adopted it at the same time. It was a government initiative too, and it used blockchain technology. So examples like this, I think, would definitely work. We also have started. We have a spin-off that uses IOUs. In Turkey, there's a wide use of IOUs from construction sector to you know, consumer sales and things like that. And it's a lot of manual work. And it has an overhead for many of the banks. And we have a spin-off that does that, and we're now adopting blockchain to provide those services, because it is not centralized in a way, and it's just a perfect use case for a blockchain technology. So there are cases like that, and I think, like I said, it definitely is hype. We will see many fumbles and failures, but as more people adopt it, using the same technology, using the same services, I think eventually, especially after the pandemic too, the regulatory side is also more open to these features, and I think it is going to continue.
Great. So thank you for actually saying these examples. Like in reality, we need to know, we need to listen to such successful cases. So Mr. Emre, knowing, please introduce yourself, and I want to ask you about the initiatives of İşbank, because I know that they have been heavily involved in innovative strategies for digital transformation and other feasible digital models. So please, can you explain and elaborate on that? And if you can give us also use cases related to the fintech and the Web3.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. It's glad to be here to talk about new technologies, blockchain, Web3. So we see that the future is in these technologies. And actually, as Mr. Mohammed and Melikşah Bey mentioned, yeah, it's a hype. But we believe that the environment, the climate is also important to develop such technologies in financial sector. Both around the world and in Turkey, banking sector is the well-developed, highly regulated sector, and which can respond to these dazzling changes in technologies and implement these technologies to business use cases and to develop business with these technologies. So in a perspective in disruptive innovation, we believe that blockchain technologies will be a hype in also Turkey, and we aim to create innovative products and services with collaborating with fintechs, technology companies to serve our customers much more innovative technologies and products. And as a part of İşbank's vision of being the bank of the future and the mission to be a pioneer in generation of innovative products and services, we aim to get prepared for this new era of financial services in relation to recently emerging trends, including crypto assets and decentralized finance as well. We are trying to make some experiments in terms of proof of concepts to try to implement these technologies to business cases. Actually, Melikşah Bey has mentioned, İşbank has initiated a proof of concept in 2020 on Marco Polo platform for using blockchain technology as a part of its foreign trade services. In this pilot phase, İşbank Group company, the biggest, one of the biggest glass producers in the world, Şişecam, is our subsidiary. The import transaction from Germany was guaranteed by using blockchain infrastructure in a live environment, and this transaction was the first transaction performed live on Marco Polo platform, and it's the also first transaction guaranteed on blockchain technology. So this process was between İşbank, Commerzbank, Şişecam, and Kurare companies, which was taking 2 weeks to share and approve documents in physical circulation before, can be completed within minutes on blockchain environment. So it was a good use case for us, actually. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you so much for the explanation and the actually telling us about the strategy. So going back to you, Mr. Muhammad, so you said that we agreed, actually, that it is a hype. We can name
Partially.
it. Like, yeah,
Partially.
exactly. So what's your input in terms of reality? How can you prove to the audience that partially it's hype, and what are the strategies that you are actually implementing with your own company, and what is the blockchain as a service example?
Thank you. Just to comment on the hype part, as was mentioned, any technology, the internet was a hype in the beginning. Actually, if you have time, go to YouTube and watch. There is a video by Bill Gates explaining in 1994 the internet. I think it was Late Show with David Letterman. It was very funny because how David had no idea what the internet is, and Bill Gates trying to explain it. Of course, if you listen to it by our today's standards, it's extremely funny, but it gives us an understanding of how these technologies evolved. The other thought is in the year 2000, we had a crash in the dot-coms. And that crash was actually what made Web 2. So the web came in, all those hype, all the companies created those websites, and the valuation for those websites was tremendous. And then you end up crashing in 2000, and they called the dot-com crash. And most of these companies are wiped out. And then you got emerging out of that disaster, or financial disaster, and amazing companies like Amazon and Google and later on Facebook and the social media revolution. So we should watch for the same kind of attributes and the kind of trends with Web3. Web3, the utopia, actually has a lot of dimensions. And some of the dimensions are actually geopolitical, because the distributed currency and the distributed money is a huge threat to currencies like the fiat currencies like the dollar. So countries, especially in the world that we're living in today, countries who do not want to see the dollar continue to be strong are pushing the concept of bitcoins and other currencies. And this utopia of wiping completely the web as we know it and creating a new brand web that is completely distributed one-to-one, where the person owns his data and he controls all his information. It's an amazing idea, but I think it's going to take a while to actually get there. But from this Web3 comes amazing technologies like the blockchain, and it's very revolutionary. And we at Azentio, what we have done is we partnered to create a fintech called Trice. And we looked at the international trade finance, and we found it's one of the most complicated processes, and the documentation is tremendous. So what we have actually done is we created a fintech that allow you to democratize that process and allow all the stakeholders in the international trade finance to participate on the blockchain to actually push that trade through. And Trice should be live later this year. And the whole concept is actually based on the blockchain and Web3 and how each trader owns his information and shares with the other traders their information on the blockchain, but they control that. The bank is just a stakeholder in the international trade finance, is not the center and the hub for that as it is today. So everybody works together in harmony and push this through. So when you look at that part of Web3, I think it's very successful, and it will continue to thrive. And Ethereum is one of the biggest players as a blockchain in that area. And it's actually a completely different vision than the Bitcoin and the decentralized, completely pure, what they call pure Web3, cryptocurrencies, etc. So I really do see, and I'm watching it extremely closely. I see it developing. There is some hype, but these hypes, I think they will develop to more concrete trends. The technologies are amazing and will continue to evolve. Tremendous amount of money and investment is going into Web3, billions and millions of dollars, and these investment monies will make things happen. Another fact that I was reading this week, there is something called StackFlow, which has around 70 million developers are members of that. And StackFlow, they did a survey, and they found that 25 million of those developers believe Web3 is the future. So when you have 25 million developers around the world, that's talent. And when you have those 25 million people believe in this vision, and they are working on it, and by the way, most of the projects they're working on are hobbies that they are doing after hours. They're not doing it as part of their jobs. Some people quit their jobs and they're doing it at home, but most of the 25 million people are doing those projects on their own time. That talent, I know that it will produce some interesting development in the industry. Yes. So when you take all that, I think we are just in the beginning. If you have the S curve of the Web3, we are just in the beginning. We didn't start the uptrend in the S curve, and it's exciting times for any business or any industry. When you are in that and you notice that, it's an exciting times to keep your eyes on it and make sure that you're actually playing that S curve.
Totally agree with you. So, Mr. Melikshah, just give us some reflection of the culture in Turkey in terms of how do they see financial inclusion by technologies, what's the reflection for emerging technologies and cryptocurrency, Web3, blockchain. How can you see the culture being in progress?
Yeah, thank you. There are two sides to adopting technologies, especially in financial sectors. The first is trust in yourself. You have to be confident enough to be able to use the technology, you be able to trust in the technology. Second is, especially this is true in financial sector, how trusting are you to giving your money, giving your assets, giving your information to third parties. This is the most important concept in financial services. If you don't trust your bank, you just want to pull your money out. It doesn't matter how big they are. We have seen that in bank runs in the past, all over the world during financial crisis. As long as that trust is there, it's going to go in the right way. Yeah. If that trust deteriorates, especially in a very fast manner, then we will see major problems. The adoption of culture in Turkey, I mean, it depends mainly on the obvious demography. The younger generation obviously is easier with regards to using technology. But I think the COVID pandemic changed the whole situation. In the past, as Emre would probably agree with me, we had targets, KPIs to our sales teams with regards to digital migration. We would tell them to, convert some of their customers, physical customers, in the branches to onboard them on the digital platforms, move them to mobile. We had those targets. We don't have them anymore. The COVID just suddenly changed it. Everyone suddenly became mobile customer. Retired elderly, for example, in the past, they would wait in front of the banks in queues in the mornings to fetch their monthly retirement payments. Now they don't do that, all because of technology. It is important that the elderly generation adopt the technology as well, because they manage the money. They are the actually decision makers with regards to, especially with regards to financial decisions. Now, I agree with Mr. Mohammed with regards to opportunities that this is bringing out. one thing that he hasn't mentioned, for example, I think still in the baby phase is smart contracts, for example, especially with regards to financial sectors. This is going to be a huge. I think they probably have incorporated it into their platform because foreign trade is all about contracts. That is going to be a huge game changer in financial technologies. Now, in order to adopt that, however, like I said, trust is necessary, and it should be legally binding too. And that part of that trust comes from the regulatory environment, that they should accept those contracts as legally binding also. And it's just not Turkey that should accept it. It should be several global things. We have that in international payments structures, mechanisms now. We have standards in the banking. All banks agree to that when they are part of SWIFT, for example.
Yeah.
So those are going to come in. Necessarily, they will come in. I think one advantage, obviously, it's a bad thing, but there are always good things that emerge from disasters like .com, like COVID. And I think adoption of Web3 is going to be I think COVID will be the game changer with regards to adoption of Web3. So that trust is now built in. People are adopting technologies, and they're trusting these technologies with regards to especially decentralized, diversified mechanisms. And I think that is important. And it's not like Mr. Mohammed said, it's not just about Bitcoin. There's a huge amount of potential out there that are probably going to be much more important.
So you are saying that the financial sector is capable of being the center, like center to build that in any certain country?
It will be a locomotive with regards to especially adopting some technologies like smart contracts.
Yeah, but it will take time, I think, until the adoption comes from your perspective. I mean, we are seeing people that are more pushed or motivated to use decentralized currencies like Bitcoin, for example. We have seen this in Turkey as well. So from the other side, in contrary, we have seen also, we are saying actually what you said about financial sector being adopting smart contracts, blockchain. So I think both will complete a full image for a certain country. Yeah, this is what I see.
Yeah, the Turkish people like trying out new things.
Yeah.
Whether these be investments or whether these be technologies, I don't think there will be major problems here. But like I said, Bitcoin is both a pro and a con with regards to development of Web3. It is good because it has drawn in a lot of interest because it went up. But it's going down, and that's going to be also a short-term, hindrance to further adoption. But like I said, it's a phase, and I think we will be past this in a reasonable amount of time, and I think this is here to stay.
Yeah, I believe it's here to stay. So. Mr. Emre, please tell us about the startup scene in Turkey, your bank's initiative with startups, the innovative strategies into the emerging technologies. How are you promoting for that? Because with this, you are also creating value with the youth generation and the startup scene. So this is, I think, very important. So also to complete the full picture of this hype, if I can say.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, Turkey is a lucky country because, as Melikşah Bey mentioned, the population is younger than our, when you compare with Europe and our region, it's a younger population. We have a younger population, and the adoption speed of technology is much more higher than the other countries. So these new technologies to develop new technologies is much more easier in such a country. So I think the environment is good for these technologies. And also startup ecosystem in Turkey is developing for actually last 5 years. The number of startups, number of investors, number of technology developers has accelerated speedily. So we see that the financial sector, the banks, the financial institutions are the parts which are highly affected with the rise of blockchain, Web3 technologies. So, because it's an disintermediation, you know, many products and services distributed by banks or financial institutions are disrupted already with fintech. So, in this perspective, we are not see such companies as rivals, or we don't compete with those companies. We want to collaborate, we want to cooperate with fintech. So we are trying to prepare an environment for those startups which make this happening and accelerate this technology.
So is there an acceleration program for that?
Actually, Melikşah Bey will maybe also contribute to this thing. We try to prepare an environment for startups. We actually 5 years ago we started. We founded a startup acceleration program, and after that we also founded an corporate venture capital firm to invest in startups. We are, as I said before, we are not see them as rivals. So to experience some different technologies and make some practices, proof of concepts, we select such startups to our acceleration programs, and we are trying to be customers of those startups. We are trying to generate, to develop products and services together with them. So actually, İşbank is one of the pioneer companies, one of the pioneer financial institutions in Turkey to empower and support startups and startup ecosystems. Also, we have our own innovation team within our digital banking division, and we have our own software developing company, Softech, and it has both inside a team, innovation team, and has innovation centers in both San Francisco and Shanghai, China. So we are tracking the new technologies, find some startups, find some fintechs to collaborate with on specific scenarios, specific use cases to implement in our businesses.
Okay, great. So I can see that there's rapid change in the landscape of technology. And I think that every one of us can contribute from his or her own perspective, and like it's open for everyone. The startup scene, the financial, the banks actually, the software companies, so, and the talents that are emerging. So I think that the adaptation it's on the first phase, and we're going there in a way or another. So any recommendation from yourself to the audience, to anyone who is listening, to young people? What do you recommend based on what we have spoken about, the Web3, the metaverse, or any kind of tips to let them get into this if they are still in the traditional mindset? Mr. Hamad, please.
Yes, as I said, we're in the very exciting stage of taking off, and any industry. I have a son who is personally. I'll talk about personal experience. I have a son who's a graduate of computer science. A couple of years ago, he graduated, and he's already doing a startup in the Silicon Valley. And I communicate with him because I want to understand how the young people think and what's their ambitions. And there are a lot of excitements happening around the Web3. And I talked about the developers and what they are doing. I believe for any young person who is interested in the information technology and is in this area, or even a business person who wants to partner with a technologist is a must. I mean, I know a lot of business people still cannot get this mindset, but I actually read something funny last week from a very a leader in the business community. He said, in this world, take the most technical person in your organization and make him a CEO. And this is the world we're actually moving into. And so a technologist is a must. I don't think a business person will just come out and get into this deeply without having a partner technologist. So the best combination is either starts with a technologist or a business person who partners with a technologist, and they go into and they try a use case and they start building and experimenting with Web3. Of course, there is, as I said, it's a continuum. You go from very pure Web3, where basically completely democratized social world, to actually more of the world of business use scenario, where you look at the banking sectors, you look at the financial sectors and see what solution you can add value with and experiment with it. I think the experimentation with technology and trying to contribute to it is the most important part in this stage of the technology. If you have the guts to go and build a startup based on this technology, definitely power to you. You'll be one of the early adopters, but at least start experimenting with this technology.
Yes, true. Please, Mr. Mehmet.
Yeah, well, before 2000, I had an IT company, and we used to write an ERP program. What I noticed was people would demand something, you would implement it, and when they started working with that new implementation, new ideas would emerge. They would start asking for new things.
Yeah.
Now, technology opens new horizons. Even if, there are many problems that we're not yet facing, we will be facing them in the future, and there are many more opportunities we're now not seeing yet. And as we use technology, we will be seeing those, and we will start thinking about them. And that is, I think, the most important thing about using technology. It just suddenly opens up your vision horizon. That should be the main idea at the board level, that visionary environment. Yeah. They will not be able to go into the technical details. They should just allow the environment to be set up. That's the major hindrance that I saw. Obviously, they have experience with regards to banking, years of experience, but things are changing in a very fast manner. I think there are several clues or tips that I could give. First of all, banking mindset is about giving credits and being able to fetch them back without any problem. That's not the way how startups work. You're going to have a lot of failures, especially with technology. You're going to have many setbacks. You should get used to that. That should be the mindset. It should be the mindset of entrepreneurship rather than a banking mindset.
Yes.
That I think is also very important. Providing an opportunity, innovative environment within the bank. Many of the technologies will necessarily reduce the staff force, but the people who are going to adopt those technologies are the people that you're going to sack eventually. So that's the major problem with regards to staff. The idea is to retrain them. For example, we adopted robot processing automation in the bank, but the people who are going to teach those robots were the guys who were entering the data. What we did was we taught them how to program robots. They were able to find jobs outside as software engineers now, not engineers, but programmers, rather than data entrance clerks. Yeah. So if you provide them, then the technology adoption will be successful. Otherwise, it will not get adopted within the company itself. And definitely, you know, work with fintechs because ideas outside the larger institutions is much more interesting.
Yes, I agree with you as well. So it's like the base, the fundamentals are like education and training and learning and experimenting in order to fulfill the adoption actually and start this out of the box.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Randa. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
This
Thank you.
Great panel.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, we have finished, right? Okay.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah. Thanks.